right. So, this is a good place to make this point. And the thing I want to say is, despite fully seeking the peace that Jesus gives, we know that on this earth, we do not fully escape the presence of sin and human limitations, ever. Even after we've experienced so much healing and our hearts and minds have really been molded by Jesus and we're really connected to him, we're still living in this sinful, fallen world. And we still experience all the aches and pains and sickness and death itself. Our physical health isn't perfect, and our mental health isn't going to be perfect either. So Paul spoke about this sort of concept in Corinthians chapter 12 when he talked about the thorn in the flesh. And even though he prayed 3 times for God to remove that thorn, the Lord said to him, "My grace is sufficient for you." We too, even after so much healing, may notice that at times we're irritated, we're uneasy, we're anxious. And at a certain point, you have to think about this, is there are going to be automatic thoughts. There are going to be these kind of unconscious processes that happen. It's just how the brain works on this earth. I wish it were different, but it isn't. But we have to remember Paul's example and do in those circumstances what he did. First, he prayed. It's okay to pray for the thorn to be removed. That's okay. He prayed for the thorn to be removed, and then he thought to himself, if only the thorn would be removed, I could be really effective. Well, God chose not to remove that thorn, and he said to him, "My grace is sufficient for you." In the same way, we have to remember when anxieties come along, when worries come along, when distractions come along, sometimes we have to let the anxiety come along with us. And we have to decide just not to get over-focused on it and to decide, I'm going to be focused on my mission. I know what my mission is, and I know that I have all this annoying stuff going on around me, but I'm going to stay focused on what my mission is. And that thorn in the flesh may come along with you, but you have to choose not to let it stop you from your mission. Don't focus on those negative feelings as if they're the most important thing, or that they must be fully removed before you can do your mission. When we focus on what we value, on the mission that we've been given to do, the negative feelings will seem smaller. And since acting on the gospel values is so rewarding, in and of itself, we will start to feel better.
So there's a metaphorical story that illustrates this whole point and this whole strategy really well about what to do with that residual negative emotion that just kind of comes along even after great improvements and changes and transformations. Okay, imagine you just moved into a new apartment building. And, yeah, that's true for some of you. And you'd like to get to know your neighbors, so you put out some flyers that say, I'm having a potluck on this date and on this time. Everybody welcome, I want to get to know you all. And now the day of your party has arrived, and your guests are coming down the hallway, and you're welcoming them and taking their dishes and putting them on the table. And all of a sudden you see someone coming down the hallway, and they have a dog with them. And that dog is one of those yappy dogs, those yappy little dogs that I don't know why anyone would have that dog. I really don't know why anyone would have any dog, but that's a different story. But that dog, that shrill, I know that was wrong, that shrill, yappy dog coming up, right? And you're like, oh, hi, so this wasn't really for pets. And the person says, wow, I don't go anywhere without Yappy. These days they say, I have a letter from my therapist that says I get to go everywhere with Yappy. But anyway, I mean, they are just not gonna, they're not gonna take Yappy back to their apartment. So now you're like, well, you're kind of blocking the door so Yappy doesn't get by you, and your other guests are now arriving, and they're going into your own apartment, which you're not in, and they're starting the party without you, and you're just blocking the door, and they're just not gonna go without Yappy.
It says on the flyer, everyone is welcome.
Yes, okay, people. Anyway, so finally, it kind of dawns on you. At a certain point, you got two choices. You could either stay out here and spend your whole party time fighting with Yappy the dog, or you could just go on in and enjoy your party and let Yappy come on in too. And you choose the second. And so every now and then you hear Yappy drawing close, and every now and then you smell Yappy nearby. But you know what? Every now and then you got to push Yappy off the buffet table. But guess what? You know, you actually kind of do enjoy your party. Now, in the story, of course, Yappy the dog represents our anxiety and our negative emotions. And even after we've used all the tools, we're still going to have some residual anxiety that comes along for the ride. Like Dee said, that's just how human brains are. And at that moment, we can make a mistake, which is thinking, well, but the only solution is if I spend all my time and energy first trying to eliminate all these negative emotions. Well, then I'll go in and enjoy my party, which is a metaphor for your whole life, right? Yes. You know, you get stuck. Again, yes, use the tools to reduce all that. Pray to God to give you that peace. That's one strategy, but the complement is the thorn in the flesh. What if there's just some leftovers, even after all of that grace and all that improvement, just because you're still on this side of heaven? Okay? Well, you know, there is this danger your whole life could go by and you spent most of your energy fighting with negative feelings. So many days you spent fighting with the negative feelings rather than just kind of living your life. Now pull out your finger trap toys. Everybody have your finger trap toys?
Does everybody have one? If you don't have...
Oh, you've got to get the finger trap toys. Okay. He's got them.
For the sheer joy of having the finger
So you
trap
put one finger in each
you have
side and then you try to pull out.
You need two.
Right. And what you're going to find as you try to pull out is the more you fight hard, the tighter and tighter it gets, right? And sometimes that's kind of what happens where all of the fight we're doing with the feelings is actually becoming a problem, right? I mean, a perfect example is OCD. I'm worried about getting germs, so now I wash my hands. Well, that makes sense once or twice or 5 times a day. But now I'm doing it 500 times a day, and now the very strategy I'm using is a bigger symptom than the original anxiety, right? So you can kind of make that mistake of getting so caught up in the fight, right? So the answer is sometimes I'm just not going to focus on Yappy, okay? I'm going to focus on my values. I could say I woke up today and felt great, and I followed Jesus, or I woke up today and I felt low energy, kind of low mood, and you know what I did? I followed Jesus, right? And whether I covered a little distance or a lot, there's a lot of satisfaction in knowing I was going in the direction God wanted me to go, or at least the direction I thought He wanted me to go, right? And there's peace in that. So kind of remember the story of Yappy the dog and kind of give that a try sometimes. Focus on your mission and notice if Yappy doesn't get smaller.
So if you're pulling against it, it gets tight, and you have to go with it. So push it in, and then you can release it, because I wanted to make sure you all could get out of your finger trap. All right. So I want to say that this insight is so much deeper than just try to ignore your negative feelings. It's really based on the biblical view that we are to seek first the kingdom of God. And then all these other things will be given to you as well. And what's so awesome about that is that it just dovetails perfectly with the research that cites the idea that seeking meaning and mission first brings along the side effect, the emotional benefit of resiliency and deeper peace. While if you seek pleasure and happiness as an end unto itself, then you're really stuck in the finger trap and you're distracted by every negative emotion. One of the flaws of the sort of cultural current coping that we see when people are demanding that I should never have to hear anything or see anything or have anybody say anything that might be upsetting to me. And, you most certainly must not disagree with me because I shouldn't have to live in that. The problem is that the more that they focus on avoiding any negative experience, the weaker their mastery gets at life experiences. The weaker, it's the same as if you exercise a muscle. This is a design law. If you exercise something, it gets stronger. You use it or you? Right. And so the same is true for your emotional well-being. If you just avoid every bad thought or feeling or anything that made me have to struggle or grow, you just get like blah, 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 emotionally, right? And that isn't God's plan for you. God doesn't expect you to just turn into like, oh, I need to live in my bubble now. Please don't upset me. Because negative feelings, while nobody wants them, that's not where we want to be, but they are a part of this life. And so our job is to learn how to use them to inform us so that we will be more powerful to bring glory and honor to his name. That's it.
So it kind of dovetails with, do you know what the treatment is for fear of flying? Flying, right? That is the treatment for the fear of flying. So you could avoid airplanes your whole life and you're still just as anxious, but if you take a flight and land safely, your anxiety drops tremendously for the next flight. And that's kind of this point. Like sometimes you're like, oh, okay, I can face that, and now I'm actually stronger for it. Okay, in the second half of the seminar, we're just going to go through a variety of tools that impact our emotional well-being, and we'll have a couple chances to discuss them again. Obviously, as Adventists, we believe that body and soul kind of are not separable. They go together. And now we have all this research on the mind-body connection that really matches that. So the whole health message, same concept, certain laws we follow. If you think about it, it's kind of like the blue zone research, right? Area of exceptional longevity is the Adventist community in Loma Linda for physical health. Well, there's always been a lot of mental health in that too. And the Adventist health study is now starting to include mental health variables because it so goes hand in hand, right? I mean, the 24-hour Sabbath rest, very good for the body and very good for the mind, right? It's kind of like both. Except for pastors, Sabbath is their tough day. But that's the cross he chose. All right. Yappy the dog, just accept. Move on. Okay, so Dee's going to talk about one very research-based tool.
All right, so I wish there were things that I could say, oh, and here's this thing you've never heard of. There is. What I've got for you is exercise. You're welcome. So the thing we know about exercise, the thing we know about exercise is that it's amazing when people start to exercise regularly, how it affects so many areas in their life. It's weird because If people start exercising, some things are real obvious, right? Like if I'm going to work out that hard, why would I eat the chocolate chip cookie? I don't need to like spend that much more. I don't have time to work on the elliptical that long. Thank you very much. I can't eat the cookie because I just don't have time to eat the cookie and work it off. So you just like are like, so you begin to eat better when you exercise. That seems obvious. But do you know that there's a lot of studies that talk about like your spending changes? I am serious. That the way that you use your resources in general.
I'm definitely not exercising then. I'm just kidding.
We'll talk later. So, we know that exercise releases endorphins that are responsible for pleasure in your brain. It stimulates cell growth in the hippocampus, which prevents and also treats, it ameliorates anxiety and depression. Now, the toughest thing about exercising is exercising, but one of the things that we know about starting anything that's hard is small but frequent steps are best. And think about it like when you teach a kid how to do something. You don't set the bar so high that they look at it and go, oh, well, there's no point in trying that. We know we're not going to make that. And there's no point in setting it so low that they're like. So you have to pick a goal that you know is achievable. Seriously, like sometimes, you like buy the Y membership and then you pack your bag and then you think, ugh, I can't get there. It's just too much work.
That was a big day.
So you have to pick something that's really achievable. 5 minutes. You could probably do 5 minutes. Even if I'm just not a person who loves exercise, so I probably am not selling it very well. But like if you hated it, you could still do it for 5 minutes, right? And here's the thing. We know that if you do it and you do it for 5 minutes and the whole time you're going, whoa, and then yet you still say, oh, tomorrow I'm still going to exercise. Tomorrow won't be quite as painful. And I don't mean like physically. Hopefully it'll probably just be more painful physically. But psychologically, it's going to be a little easier every time you do it. It's like anything you practice. You get better at it. If you practice just doing it, setting a goal that's achievable and just do it. So keystone habits are things like exercise that we know affect a whole range of things, not just your mental health, not just your physical health, not just your spiritual well-being, but like all of them together.
Okay.
Go exercise.
So, and one of the reasons exercise seems to work so well is it's such immediate feedback that your choices matter.
Yeah.
I mean, people feel better within a week after those 2 5-minute walks. And it's like, wow, my choices matter. And that's why it seems to spill into like, oh, I could be efficacious in another area maybe of my life. Okay, a second tool, pleasurable activity scheduling. So everybody's.
It's not specifically sex. It's just pleasurable activity scheduling. Just saying.
Oh, that's right, at the marriage. Yeah, okay. So everybody has stress of one. That's an inside story about the marriage seminar that Pastor attended. Okay. Everybody has stress of one kind or another, right? And what happens is we start to kind of just hunker down like, I got to focus on this problem. And pretty soon we just have tunnel vision about the stress. And we actually need to step back away from the stress to refresh our minds and then come back to the problem with a sharper saw, right? With a refreshed kind of mind. Michelangelo, the great sculptor, said if you're trying to work on a sculpture and you can't get it right, put down your tools and go up on a hill and look at it from a distance. Just get away from it. Look at it from a distance. And then when you come back, you'll see what needs to be done, right? And we kind of have that with Sabbath, but sometimes we need even more of a distance kind of from a problem. So, if you think about it, Jesus said, Mark 6:31 says, so many people were coming and going, they did not even have a chance to eat. And Jesus said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Amen. You know, if Jesus needed rest and relaxation, obviously so do we. So how do we make that into a tool? Well, we are all absolutely loyal slaves to our calendars, right? That's how we roll in our culture today. So it's really important to get your calendar involved in this tool and look ahead and plan for some truly relaxing activities, right? It could be spending time with a trusted friend. It might be a hobby. It might be literally reorganizing a space. That can feel good. You know, that's sort of like work, but really if you get a space that is awesome.
I'm just saying.
Reorganizing a space is one of the greatest pleasures of life. So, okay, so here's what I'm saying. If you look at your calendar week after week and you say, you know, there's nothing I'm really looking forward to, that's a problem. You're likely to start winding down emotionally instead of kind of going up or recharging. Yes, if you look at your calendar and you're looking at week after week and you say, there's nothing I'm really looking forward to, that is a danger sign. You're probably going to start winding down emotionally rather than building up or maintaining strength. So you got to pencil something in there that's a high-value target, we call it, right? Like, I know when I have lunch with this person, it's always an upper, right? You may choose to avoid other people for lunch because it's always a downer, right? But, you know, you say, oh, I know that if I do this thing, I'm always glad I did it, right? Then you're going to pencil that in and actually kind of decide to make it happen as opposed to just hoping it happens. It's that simple, back to that toolkit concept. So think about this. This is an active strategy, right? You're saying we have this connection between what we're doing and how we're feeling. So the active strategy is, I'm going to do the good stuff to feel good. Because I can control writing something in my calendar and doing it. The reverse is not a strategy at all. I'm going to wait until I feel good and then I'll do the good stuff. Okay, I'm just waiting for lightning to strike. That's not a strategy. You might as well just admit you got no strategy, right? Only in that order is it a strategy. Okay.
If lightning were a good thing.
Well, you know, metaphorically helpful lightning. Okay. We are going to break to our groups again for 15 minutes. You got to go to a different group than you did last time. We're going to discuss the questions that follow in this section about yappy, about exercise, about pleasurable activities. We have an interesting debate question about the role of pleasure for a Christian. So we'd like you to, if our group leaders could raise your hands and scoot to your corners a little bit, and you have to go to a different group leader than you had last time. Okay? And we will hit questions 5 through 8. Raise your hand, group leaders. Ron, raise your hand, please. Armin, do you want to be a group leader? Oh, here you go. What? Well, yeah, split off. Questions 5 through 8. Make sure everyone talks. You and Laurel form a group, so we're not too big. Otherwise, people can't talk. We want to give everybody a chance to talk.